Be sure to subscribe to the Healthcare Security Cast so you don't miss a single episode. We're on multiple platforms, including Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and Audible, just about anywhere where you can listen to a podcast. For links to all of these sites, for links to join the Healthcare Security Cast community groups on LinkedIn and Facebook, or if you're interested in being a guest or being a sponsor, you can find all of this through one link. Check out our link tree at linktree/Brian Hamilton. That's linktr.ee/Brian, B-R-I-N-E, Hamilton. Again, that's linktr.ee/Brian Hamilton. And before we get into the show, I just want to thank our sponsors, 3D Network Technology. Reliability is our core value. Visit 3dnetworktechnology.com. And Genetech, delivering security strategies for healthcare. Visit Genetech, that's GENETEC.com. And also the Change Execution Group and 360 Life Transformations. Visit 360lifetransformations.com.
Welcome to the Healthcare Security Cast, the podcast dedicated to healthcare security, safety, and emergency management. If you are involved with a healthcare security program or desire to be, this podcast is for you. Join the conversation as we discuss the issues that matter to healthcare security professionals while leveraging the expertise of healthcare security thought leaders and experts in personal development. And now, here's your host, Brian Hamilton.
Welcome to the Healthcare Security Cast for Tuesday, April the 13th. I'm joined today by Ron Camacho. Ron, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Now, I'm going to start off with the question I always ask everybody to kick things off. Who is Ron Camacho?
I'm a 26-year veteran of policing. I'm currently a chief of police here in one of the best departments in South Central Pennsylvania, Chambersburg Police Department. I've had a kind of a wide, varied career. I've policed in a kind of an urban environment for the first 18 years of my policing career. Was overseas for 2 years, did some international training in Afghanistan and Mexico, worked at a college as a lieutenant at Old Dominion University, and then had the pleasure of becoming the chief here at Chambersburg. I'm also a veteran of the United States Army. Last 3 years were spent with the 82nd Airborne Division, which with its rich history and traditions really taught me a lot about leadership. So that's who I am in a thumbnail sketch. So
awesome stuff. Now, the main focus of our discussion today is going to be detoxing a toxic work environment. Can you share from your experience how this became a topic that you teach on now?
Yes. So during my career, I moved up the ranks very, very quickly. And I kind of gained a reputation of somebody that was given difficult people to supervise and was also given some assignments that were challenging. And I rose to the occasion and I kind of learned some ways on how to detox a unit or a group positively, and other ways, not so positively. So I had a lot of experience at a very young period in my policing career, as far as a supervisor to detox units. So I learned what was good, what was not good, threw out what was not good, and just continued building on what was good. And throughout my career after my first department, when I went overseas, at one point in time, I was working as a program manager for on a State Department contract in Mexico. And we had a whole bunch of police officers, very senior guys, retired FBI guys, retired DEA guys, legends. And then, officers from all over the United States that I had to supervise. So I learned how to build a culture there, and build a positive culture. And then from there, went to the college where there was some definite supervisory issues that I had to go and deal with. And then here, where I put all that stuff together and just really built a good culture and just not allowing toxic employees to infect any part of what I'm trying to do here. So a lot of experience, a lot of research, a lot of learning from others, from mentors on what works and what doesn't work, and just kind of putting that all together, real simplified type way, and feel comfortable enough because I've seen successes in my career that I can go and mentor other chiefs and just speak to other supervisors very comfortably about, hey, these are the steps that work. Take it from me, take it from the research, go ahead and do this, and life will be better.
Good stuff. Now, I'm just curious from your experience, because I found this is the case with a lot of folks. You perform at a very high level as an individual contributor, get promoted. A lot of times you don't get the tools that you need for those leadership roles. And then in your case as well, like you mentioned, you were younger when you got into these leadership roles. So did you find either of those to be challenges early on for you?
Yeah, 100%. So I was successful, but because I was young when I got into those positions, I burnt bridges, and I was not as well-rounded as I am now. So with experience, you learn what to do, what not to do. I've also done a lot of work on myself, which I think we'll talk about here in the future. And working on myself really stepped up my game as being able to employ other tools that I did not have in my toolbox. For instance, emotional intelligence. So my earlier career, when I was working and taking care of personnel issues and really, either getting rid of marginal employees, I didn't have a lot of the tools to really do that the right way. I was kind of using a hammer or an axe where a scalpel should have been the tool that I should have used. So you learn, right? You learn, you get experience, you study, you get educated, and really I did a lot of that learning and self-reflection, introspection on myself, and just develop these tools to do that same job in a better way, in a more efficient way, in a way where I'm not burning bridges, I'm not doing all that stuff, and I'm getting better results. So the great thing about my position now is it's kind of like the final pieces to a gumbo, where now I put all that stuff in there, taking out the stuff that I don't want, and now I'm seeing great results and feel comfortable enough to be able to share those results with people in the private and public sector.
Awesome. And yeah, it's good that you were able to overcome some of the past mistakes that you made, and it's good. Like, everybody needs to be able to have the opportunity to grow and learn from their own mistakes. But I think it highlights something that you said when we spoke before, that ego kills careers.
100%. So one of the things that happened with me was, I'm a young guy, I'm put into these positions, and I'm expected to perform. And I performed at a very high level, but I was insecure, which drove my ego up. I was arrogant. I don't like that guy from, 10 years ago, right? I'm embarrassed sometimes. I did get the results. I was able to motivate people, but it wasn't the right motivation, And I went through a divorce. I went through counseling, and the counseling really emphasized and showed that I was a problem. I had some major stuff that I had to work on, and it really kind of showed why I was insecure. And with that, those sessions, which were very emotional and intensive, I just had this breakthrough where I started changing. And my change wasn't overnight, but the breakthrough was, and just me working on myself constantly. The person you look at in the mirror every day, that's your opponent. That's the person you have to convince that, you have to be a better person every day. You have to work on that. And now I am not angry like I was back then, or emotional. I'm a very happy person, and I have a department that has very high morale. They know that I care about my guys, and care about them to look out for their futures and their careers, and protect them, from the forces that are influencing policing in today's day and age. They also know that I expect a lot from them. I push myself and I push them. So I'm very happy with the results. And again, that's noticed by a lot of my peers, and my phone rings a lot where people are asking me, for advice on personnel issues. Don't ask me to come to your house to build anything. I'm allergic to hammers. I can't do anything with that. But if you need help with trying to detox a toxic environment, and these rules apply for both public and private sector. I feel comfortable talking to that with anybody. And I see it all the time in my travels. Whoever I deal with, I see issues that come up. So this is not just police related. It's, hospital related. It's government related. It's private business related. It's the same stuff, so it's the same issues, the same problems. So understanding who I am and working on myself and controlling my ego and getting that under control really made me a better person, a better leader, and the results are tangible and they're positive. And that's why I feel comfortable about speaking on this subject, and have taught it and have received some very positive remarks from those that have attended my classes.
Awesome. Now, before we get into some of those rules that you were talking about, I want to reflect on something that you said earlier. You spoke about coming into these departments, seeing what was good and seeing what was not good, and making the necessary adjustments. What were some of the common themes that you would see as far as things that, well, I guess we'll talk about both things that were good or things that weren't good?
I can tell you this, and this is a common theme throughout any sort of organization that I've seen over and over again. The unwillingness for leaders to challenge, somebody that's toxic or somebody that's problematic, right? Or even you have somebody who's a good worker, a hard worker, but they have bad habits. And I'll call that, and I've kind of coined that frame, bad habits. So you have somebody that's, maybe in a healthcare facility, if you're talking about a security officer. So this guy, he comes to work, he's on time every day, he's very knowledgeable, and he's very professional in a lot of ways. But then there's that one aspect of him where he's the guy that nobody wants to deal with, right? Because every time you deal with him, he's nasty, he's not polite, stuff like that. So many leaders would look at that guy and say, I'm going to just look at the good stuff that guy's doing, and I'm going to ignore the bad stuff. I'm not going to address the bad stuff. I don't believe in that. I don't think that's a good philosophy. I think you have to have a standard for everybody. And even if they're a good worker and a good producer, the negative aspects of that should not be ignored, right? We should get to a baseline so that everybody's professional, everybody's doing the same thing. And it's been my experience that we tend to look at those high performers and kind of push that to the side, accept them, and also accept those bad habits. And that can cause morale issues because that person's being treated differently than other people. So I think the number one piece of advice I would give is you have to work on those bad habits for everybody, whether it's the person that's a cheerful person who comes to work every day, but they're late, or the person who that you're dealing with and they're nice, everybody likes them, but their work is substandard, right? Or the person that everybody likes, but their uniform is, trashed every day, and people ignore that. Oh, he's a good person. We'll ignore the uniform. We'll ignore the attitude. We'll ignore these bad habits. Don't ignore them, right? Let's get everybody on a baseline. Let's get everybody to the same set of standards and expectations, and you'll get that buy-in, from your people. If everybody's treated the same, you can get that buy-in, and you can start setting culture and changing culture within your organization.
Excellent. And I think one thing that I've seen that's kind of consistent with somebody, that example that you gave of the high performer who does have those bad habits. And I've been that person myself, but one of the things is oftentimes when you approach that person and you want to give them that feedback, a really common thing that you'll see is them deflecting and saying, well, at least I'm not doing what so-and-so is doing, or, and they kind of try to turn the attention off of themselves.
Yeah, 100%. And then that goes back to the ego issue. So you can work on that ego issue, which I'm very comfortable, being a reformed egomaniac, right? A reformed, arrogant, young, captain. So I can use the tools that I have developed and work on that with them, and kind of show them, hey, we're all on the same team, right? We all need to be treated the same. So I've had that issue where I've worked, and a lot of that has to also do with, and I call them truth bombs, right? A lot of times in leadership and supervision, we skirt around issues. We don't like to be, so truthful with people. I'm incredibly truthful with my people. That doesn't mean that I'm looking to hurt their feelings, right? But I'm looking to have an honest conversation where I'm not skirting around the issues. I'm sitting with them and we're talking and we're being honest, and I get a lot of positive feedback from that. There were times where I told you I ran the unit in Mexico where I had all these retired federal agents and sheriffs and officers from all over the United States. And I had some legends that were working for me, guys that were, in the jungles of Colombia and Bolivia, chasing Pablo, back in the 80s and stuff. And one of the guys said to me, and I took this as a huge compliment, like, of all the bosses I've had, you've been the most honest. I trust you. And I think to me, that was a high compliment, especially from somebody with that guy's experience and background. And again, validation that my methods are working, right? And that the honest, truthful way, and being transparent. I teach about transparency in policing. And I think that's another tool that I use effectively. There are no secrets here. I'm being very open and honest with my guys when we're making decisions and putting together these plans, and it's there for them. And that's how you get that buy-in, which is incredibly necessary for success.
Absolutely. I want to reflect on something else that you said earlier as well. Now, you had mentioned earlier the value of speaking with a professional, whether it be a counselor, a psychiatrist, or a professional in that field. With law enforcement and security being consisting of a lot of type A personalities, I feel like there's a bit of a stigma around, these type of resources, both for security and law enforcement. Do you see a trend of those stigmas starting to go away, or the barriers breaking down?
Yes. So, and I will tell you from my experience, part of my career in my first department, I was a SWAT officer and then rose up to the ranks to run the SWAT team. And one of our SWAT call outs that we had was pretty intensive one, 13 hours, a guy with a gun who had fired shots at the team. It was incredibly intensive. I was the team leader, so I had the command of all the interior units. And unfortunately, the guy didn't surrender. We talked to him for 13 hours, and we had to shoot and kill him because he was shooting at us, and it was unfortunate that happened. My stress level was so high from that incident, and then plus the other daily things that I was doing as a police lieutenant at that time, that when we went to these debriefs, and debriefs are incredibly important, after action reports and debriefs, I was crying, right? I was crying at these debriefs, and you're talking to an ego guy at that point in time. I didn't cry. Well, why am I crying? So I went to a counselor, and at that point in time, and the guy said, look, your cup is filled, man. You gotta let that go. So that kind of started with, me understanding that, I can't hold everything in. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I'm not a partier. I was just taking all that stress and holding it in, and it caused issues, caused anger issues. It caused, many issues in my life. So I told you about the divorce and going to counseling, marriage counseling. Well, it did not help the marriage, but it did really open up that door into what makes me tick. Where's that anger coming from? Why are you so insecure? So I started working on myself. And again, it felt like a weight of the world was lifted off my shoulder once I started understanding who I truly was and what made me tick. And I love that gift that I was giving. That gift changed me as a person. It started me on the path to really becoming a good person. Okay. So I preach that in any way, shape, or form that I get to talk with people, I am not ashamed of that in any way, shape, or form. And I want people to learn from me and what happened to me and how I've changed. And I truly believe that people can change. I've seen that. I was 42 at that time where I started that journey. I'm 52 and I'm a totally different person, way more successful. My relationships are stronger. My networking is fantastic, and I get great joy out of seeing the people that work for me succeed and get to other levels. So whenever I have dealt with people that I feel have had these mental blocks or definitely need some sort of help with a psychologist or a counselor, I tell them my story. I'm not ashamed. I'm proud of it, to be honest. And with that, them knowing me and me sharing that, I lessen the stigma. And here in the department, I've used that tool a lot with guys going to the psychologist to work on, the ego portion of them, the obstacle portion of them getting to the next level because of their ego. When those people have come back from these sessions, right, whether it's 3 times, 4 times, 6 times, they have changed. So now the stigma gets lessened even more because you're seeing somebody that for 15 years was one way, and all of a sudden you see some subtle changes. You see some differences in how they're working. And I'm proud of that because that stigma gets lessened and lessened, and then they can go. And when they are supervising somebody, they can talk to them about their own journey and how they were before and after that. So it's an incredibly important tool, and I see that the stigma to that is lessening. There's still a lot of suicides in the field, right? It's an incredibly stressful job, and the stress hasn't let up here in the last couple of years here in the States. So I think it's incredibly important, but for leaders, it's incredibly important for you to recognize and know your people and to really, be brave yourself. If you see somebody that needs some help, get them help. And here in the department, the stigma is not so much. And then I have guys that are peer counselors. So they go out to other departments and they share that information too. They're trained to talk to other officers and stuff. And I've done it even in my personal life, helping people that were in need, So I'm not a counselor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I just know the value of that. And I know where to point somebody to those needs. And also I know the value, and I've been around enough to know the warning signs and smart enough not to ignore those warning signs in people.
That's great stuff. So there's a couple of things there. Number one, I really want to commend you and also make sure that we don't lose the fact that you went to this counseling for something totally unrelated. You wanted this to help the past marriage that you were in. And like you said, you didn't get the desired outcome, but you were still able to take a tremendous amount of value away from that counseling, even though that wasn't the desired outcome in the beginning.
Yeah. It's funny. When I share these stories, that when you're talking about it's pretty intensive when you make your counselor cry, and that happened on a couple occasions, so when you have that objective person looking and saying, whoa, this happened or that happened. And I've never drank. I'm not a smoker. I never did any drugs. So we're just talking about some stuff growing up, where it kind of affected me. And then it continued affecting me and really didn't get it under control until, I was in my early 40s.
Right. And I guess there's another lesson in that too, like your past traumas. It's really never too late to get help for those issues and really try to address them so they're not spilling into your other relationships beyond that.
100%. And again, I work on myself all the time, and I think it's healthy, and I look to help others. It's kind of interesting. I'm on social media a lot, LinkedIn cast, and I get messages from people, looking for advice in policing or looking for advice on some other things. And, I love helping people. Before before this transformation, I was very insular and, didn't want to be bothered, and now that brings me great joy to be able to help somebody become successful.
Awesome stuff. Now, the other thing that you mentioned that I want to touch on a little bit, and I know we weren't planning on going there, but since you did mention it, were some of your officers who were involved in that incident where they had to take someone's life. Now, if you kind of form your thinking based on what we see in the media, they make it seem as if it's really easy for police officers to take somebody's life. And, I don't, I think there's probably very few examples of, one officer or a couple of officers taking more than one life because of just how difficult it is, number one, and how rare those circumstances actually are in the grand scheme of things. But can you talk to us a little bit about what the impact is on an officer, when they have to, in the course of their duty, actually take a life in order to, protect the community?
Yeah, I think that it's an incredible responsibility, especially if you're a good person. And, we are good people for the most part. And we don't take that lightly. It's an incredible amount of responsibility that's put on my shoulders. So my shoulders, not only was I responsible for the 10 or 12 guys that were in that inner perimeter, but then also, trying to peacefully end this without anybody taking somebody's life. So the stress level is incredibly hard. We like I said, it was a 13-hour call out, one of our longest call outs. And we tried talking and throwing gas in there and then talking some more. And I will tell you that that was one where the neighbors came out. And when the media came to talk to them neighbors at that incident, they were like, those officers did everything they could. They talked to him for hours. We negotiated with them, with this individual for hours. And so there was a lot of credit that we got from the neighbors, them knowing that we tried everything that we could to end this peacefully. And he dictated that. He's the one, his actions dictated what happened.
No, fair enough. Now, before we really get into, some of the rules for detoxing, the last thing I want to ask you about is something that you talked a lot about so far. And that's, I guess, when you're looking at making a change starting from the top. So working on yourself, or at least controlling the one variable that you can definitely control on your own. When you started this journey of self-improvement, what were some of the things that you focused on? And just for anyone who may be listening to what you're saying and, thinking, okay, I need to start working on myself, what are some things that you can recommend?
Yeah. So part of that was really part of the stuff with the counseling is getting called on my bull crap. Right. So, just getting called on my bull crap. And then, me starting on that path where, I had to start really calling myself and being accountable to myself. A lot of it has to do with self-reflection, and just always, always trying to be honest with yourself and who you are. I written an article about ego, and part of the article I say, hey, I fight the battle with ego and I win 80% of the time. I'm a human. I'm not going to win 100% of the time. There are times where I lose that battle and my ego comes into, some decisions. And when I recognize that, or it's pointed out to me, I go and I reflect on that heavily, So that's some of the stuff that I've done. I have a tremendous wife now who's an incredibly strong person who helps me also keep on that path. And we go on these long dog walks. We have these two, a Great Dane and a German Shepherd, and we go on these hour-long walks every night. And that walk is just me downloading about the events of the day, her downloading about the events of her day, and me talking about some of these leadership challenges and issues and how to best formalize a strategy for whatever I have coming forward. So the verbalization really helps me. And then also getting that feedback. I think it's also incredibly important to have those self-checks with your officers. So recently I had my lieutenant retire. He went on to this great job with the state, but he was very much, that person that would, play devil's advocate and give me the negative of stuff, or give me his opinion on what could be some issues when we started talking about decisions being made. So I think it's incredibly important to have a co-pilot, right? You need that person there to kind of, show you a different aspect and a different way of thinking about what you have going on. Too many times we're in a silo and we're making these decisions, especially at the upper level. And, I became a better leader, a better manager, a better supervisor once I had a good person to kind of say, hey, I know what you're talking about has all these Pegasus and unicorns and fairies, with rainbows and stuff like that all over the place. But let me hit you with some reality. This is what you're going to potentially come into. And that was invaluable. My lieutenant now is also, doing the same thing, where I need to hear that other side. And as a leader, we need to accept that. More work on yourself. There are an incredible amount of books out there. Ryan Holiday has written a lot of books on stoicism. And one of his books is called Ego is the Enemy, that I thought was incredibly important as I started doing a lot of my researches for the classes that I was putting together. Also, I listen to a lot of podcasts, right? And, especially ones with some of the main movers and shakers, out there in the community nowadays. And it's great when you listen to somebody who's done some incredible stuff, whether that be a CEO or, some Navy SEAL like Jocko Willink, who teaches all this stuff about leadership. And he says something and you're like, I'm doing that. Okay, I must be on the right path. I'm doing that. Or you read a passage in a book, man, I think I'm on the right path. This is what this person is talking about. So I think that's important to do all those things, right? To really have those self checks to keep you in balance and make sure that you're doing the right thing moving forward.
Awesome stuff. Now, let's move on to talk about the rules of detoxing department.
Sure. Yeah. So I kind of put together a little plan here, and this is a large subject, but I'll hit some of the high points. So I think one of the things when you come into a department or a unit and you're trying to detox it, is to kind of don't just say, hey, I'm coming in, things are going to change from, the day that I walk in, and not investigate or really look into past slights, hurts, and injustices of that unit. You're the new guy coming in, and you really need to listen to that. That's building trust. That's building empathy, right? And getting them to kind of understand that you're not just ignoring that stuff. You want to listen. Maybe there is some validity to why they feel that way. And if you can work on that, then you can get some buy-in. Just a little conversation, and that's happened where somebody felt like they were slighted multiple times by past leaders, right, or managers in that position. And I came in and we talked. Hey, I acknowledge, yeah, that to me that seems a slight. I'm not going to do that to you. Let's talk about this and give me the benefit of the doubt moving forward. I will prove to you that that's not going to happen. And you get that buy-in. But too many times, somebody comes in and they say, well, I don't care what happened before in the past. It's, my rules now, and you're not going to get buy-in. You're going to get resistance, and it's just going to be problematic. So, I'm a big one to start off when you're developing a detox plan, to investigate those slights, hurts, and injustices, and kind of, do a little bit of homework, and and that'll help you building trust with them and getting forward. Another thing is, getting that group to kind of help you develop your plan, right? So you're developing a detox plan, and you want to get this buy-in, right? And including them into the development of the plan will definitely get their buy-in. It's not your plan, it's our plan, right? It's the team's plan. So that can definitely help, as you're developing the needs. Again, why is that unit toxic? was it toxic? Are the people in that unit good to go and the leader was toxic? Or have all of them been toxic and have just been so toxic that they've run the leaders out? There's many reasons for that. Well, you have to go and understand what the issues are so that you can work on those issues. And another thing that I see is training, right? Just to kind of identify different training needs. I took over a unit when I was a young sergeant. These guys were, they felt marginalized. And part of it was because they weren't getting, the training that they should have gotten. At that point in time at the department, the person who controlled training took care of their people, for lack of a better word. So I had to fight hard to get my people trained. And then they saw that. And, I got some buy-in from them and respect from them, and morale started raising up. And we were able to do some good things and start working on other issues. So part one is developing that detox plan. And I've just gone over a couple of those points. And then the second part is implementing the detox plan. So now you have your plan together. Depending on how complicated the situation is, you can do it in phases. You have to set out your expectations. You're going to set the standards. You're going to enforce those standards. Again, that's this guy with the bad habit, he gets special treatment. Well, that's going to really undermine what you're trying to do. Again, number one thing in leadership, right, is lead by example. So you have to make sure that, you're leading the charge and you're leading by example so that, you have that credibility with your people. And then let's say if you do run into a situation where you're getting the resistance and you're not getting the compliance, you got to make sure you document that stuff. Too many times we're having these conversations, we're making these little checks, right? Checks in behavior or checks in policy violation or, a rule violation, and we're not documenting that, and I think it's important to document that. And I'm not saying document that like you're writing the person up all the time. Document that so that you have a nice, kind of record, so that when you do go move forward to, talk to this person, you can say, look, we have issue here, issue here, issue here, issue here. And I like doing that where I brought somebody in and I've had multiple issues, and I bring them in to talk to them and say, look, we have multiple things here. I'm not nitpicking you, but I'm having multiple issues here. Do you see a pattern? Help me help you. This is what you're doing. Can you not see that there's an issue here? How do we get past this? Is there something going on in your private life, right? And that's a question that I would never have asked before in the past, right? Work is work, private life is private life. We now understand that they all intermingle, as far as our emotions are concerned. So we have to kind of look at is that, a warning sign for us, as far as trying to get compliance with what we're trying to do. So patience is also, you have to be patient. And again, getting that good co-pilot to help you see things, and off you go, right? I believe heartedly in the rehabilitation of people. So if you get somebody that's toxic, and there's many different types of toxic people. Like I said before, you have your slackers, incompetents, the egotist, sociopath, right? And that's just a couple of examples. A lot of times there are ways that you can rehabilitate them. And one of the things I was most proud of is when I rehabilitated somebody that was toxic or somebody that was problematic. Too many times leaders are like, get rid of them. I'm going to move them out of the unit. I'm going to fire them, and I don't believe in that. I believe in trying to rehabilitate the best way you can. Some people can't be rehabilitated, but I'm going to give it my best shot to try to get this person to get with the team, and I've been successful multiple times doing that, and again, those honest conversations, And again, they have to know that you mean it, right? That you care about them. And that's that emotional intelligence aspect, which is lacking from a lot of people. It's scary, right? You're talking about emotions, and that's kind of scary to a lot of leaders in our fields.
Oh, absolutely. Now that's great. That's some valuable stuff there. And I know we've hit on a lot of different stuff while we've been talking so far. Is there anything that I may have failed to bring up that you'd like to mention now?
I think I hit it before, but I'll hit it again. Transparency is incredibly important when you're building these plans together and implementing these plans. Transparency kills gossip, right? And I think that's incredibly important to understand that if you're open and honest and have nothing to hide, you can't really be attacked on those fronts, right? And that open and honest way that you're going, that path that you're taking there can't be attacked, and more people will understand that, hey, if I get on board, I understand what he's trying to do. He's been very open with his philosophies, his strategies. I helped him develop this plan. Why shouldn't I get on board the boat and sail down, the river of success? So I think transparency is incredibly important. I also preach that in policing. I think that's necessary in every organization.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of training, education, speaking, anything that you're working on in general, or for anybody who wants to hear the full presentation or go through the full process, what can we expect to see from you in the future, Ron?
Yeah, great. So I just found out that I got accepted into a doctorate program at California University of Pennsylvania.
Congratulations.
So yeah, thank you. I'm very nervous, but again, that's me teaching my guys, be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Obviously, this is uncomfortable to be going into, a doctorate program. I know it's going to be tough work, but I'm leading by example, showing my guys, hey, let's work on your education. I think it's an important piece. So I do training for a company called Homefront Protective Group, and you can Google that. So a lot of these classes are on there. The toxic detoxing police cultures, the leadership in times of crisis, the ego class, a lot of this stuff I do for them. And it's a great group. There's a lot of other training that I think the people that listen to the podcast, right, and healthcare, there's a lot of crossover that they can get some great value in that. And I have a consulting company called CamachoConsulting.net. If you want to Google that. And again, that's me helping public and private sector organizations with leadership issues having to do with transparency or detox or crisis leadership, stuff like that. So those are the main things that I'm doing and working on now. And I think I'll be very busy here with the doctorate program starting here in June.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably accurate. Now, in terms of the Healthcare Security Cast community, do you have a special message to share with them?
Yes, just like in any type of organization, try to be the best that you can be in your organization. Try to improve yourself every day, and that could be done in many different ways. Like I think I mentioned it before. I listen to podcasts all the time, and you get some incredible amounts of information there, and some good information, as you have these incredible people that come on here, and even if you take away one or two good nuggets, man, that's going to step up your game. That's another tool in your toolbox. So listen to podcasts, read, right? I'm a huge proponent of reading. I have a library. I see your books behind you. I have quite a few books. And a lot of my books have to do with military history, and I study the leaders. If you want to talk about Napoleon, Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great, the great generals from World War II, I'm your man. But before I read that, kind of like in a, imagining kind of fantasy type way of what it would be like to be with Alexander there and his conquest of Persia, or be with Napoleon, and some of his great battles across Germany and into Russia. But now I look at that and I'm looking for the leadership nuggets. How did Napoleon motivate his troops? How did he, get the French populace to have this high morale and be behind him, that they made him an emperor? How did he do all these things? How did Genghis Khan, have the largest contiguous, land empire in the world? How did these great leaders do these things? And that's what I look for. So reading is incredibly important to kind of understand, leadership and management issues. And those podcasts, it doesn't have to be military or policing. You listen to CEOs talk, and talk, how did they become successful? What are those nuggets, And definitely, I'm huge into coaching and mentorship. Get a mentor. There are plenty of good people out there that want to see you succeed, want to see you get to the next level. If you see somebody that's there, try to reach out to them. The mentors in my life, the real life mentors, came very late in my age. I was in the 40s when I started seeing these mentors. That also came when my ego, right, started getting suppressed, and I was open to learning from a lot of these people. And that has tremendously opened up my world and really helped me become the better person. So just work on yourself every day, become the best version of yourself that you can be, and life will be good.
Awesome stuff. Now, you talked about reaching out. What are the best ways for us to connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook, right? Ron Camacho. It's a picture of me in my uniform. You can't miss this bald head and mustache, right? I'm on LinkedIn. That one again, that has my police uniform, and I'm on Instagram. So I do a lot of stuff professionally on LinkedIn, and I have a pretty good network of people there. And then if somebody wants to personally reach out to me, rcamacho 1505 @gmail.com, is a good way to reach out to me. But any of those platforms, they want to reach out. Again, I'm on a mission, not only to get better myself, but to help as many people as I can get better, learn from my mistakes. I'm constantly teaching every day in here. An officer comes in to talk to me, he's getting a 15 to 20 minute lesson about something, and I'm blessed and happy that I'm able to do that, and just want to spread the word even more.
Awesome stuff. Well, thank you so much, Ron. I appreciate your time. And again, I appreciate all this quality and value that you offered us in this short time.
Thank you. And God bless you for doing something like this. This is awesome. And, please keep up the great work.
The Healthcare Security Cast is available on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music and Audible, and many other platforms as well. Check out our Linktree on your computer or mobile device. And this can be found at linktree/Brian Hamilton. That's linktr.ee/Brian, BRINE Hamilton. Again, that's linktr.ee/Brian Hamilton. Or if it's easier, send me a text at 647-372-2042. That's 647-372-2042. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have or share any links you may be looking for. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, take care and stay safe.